I want to change. What do I do?
Yeah. So, well, first of all, the meditations that we do are not based on any tradition. Our meditations are based on brain science and heart rate variability and all the things that we've studied. So we have different meditations for different things, you know. But a simple thing to do, really simple, it's such an easy thing, is when you wake up in the morning, instead of remembering your problems and getting into those feelings or getting up and doing your routine, sit up, close your eyes, and ask yourself, okay, who do I want to be today? And say, okay, before I create this new person, let me just take a moment and let me just become conscious of the thoughts that I think that don't support me any longer. I can, it's too hard, I'll start tomorrow. You start writing those thoughts down, becoming familiar with those. Then you review your behaviors, even how you speak. Do you complain? Do you make excuses? Do you feel sorry for yourself? Do you procrastinate? Do you judge other people? Just get a list and write those down. Look at the emotions that cause you to fall to a lower denominator every day, and just become aware of those and review those thoughts, behaviors, and emotions. Become so familiar to them, so conscious of them, that you won't go unconscious to them in your waking day. Now, that is the process. That's to know thyself, and it's amazing because you could actually anticipate the thought before it's coming. When you get good at this, you're like, oh no, I'm not going to go there, because you're so aware of those thoughts now, because nerve cells that no longer fire together no longer wire together. So you begin to dampen down the connections in your brain that have to do with the old self. You're no longer having the same thought that's producing the same chemical that's signaling the body to feel a certain way. You're disrupting that process. In the beginning, yeah, that's uncomfortable. The body's been in that familiar state. Then if you say, okay, what thoughts do I want to fire and wire in my brain? And you have those thoughts and put all of your attention behind them. What behaviors? How am I going to be with my husband? How am I going to be at work? How am I going to be on the phone today? Who am I going to make a difference with? And start to review. Just review. Think about and plan who you're going to be.
What if you create that person and you think that they don't want that person around?
Well, I mean, it's always within reason. It's not about them. It's about you. It's about who you're going to be with them. And you can't control. I mean, anybody is free will. But what you can control or regulate is who you're going to be. So then you say, okay, what emotions am I going to live by the entire day? Let the test begin. That no person, no thing is going to steal my joy today. I'm not going to mismanage my attention and lose the love that I feel now. And you start working on those emotional states and just say, I'm not getting up until I feel that feeling. Now, that little small exercise of just deciding who you no longer want to be and reviewing who you do want to be takes 20 minutes. And you get up and you feel better. And your body begins to make a whole different set of chemicals, a whole pharmacy of chemicals that really start to make you see reality differently. We don't see things how they are. We see things how we are. So when you change who you are, you're going to get a broader spectrum of the way the world really is. And look, people who are unhappy with themselves are unhappy with everybody. People who hate other people, they hate themselves. People who judge other people, they're always judging themselves. People who love themselves love other people. People who are happy with themselves are happy with other people. And you can say to me, well, it was this person or that thing that did it to me 25 years ago. And I'm going to say to you, wow, that means you haven't changed in 25 years. That experience was the end of your evolution. Because when you say that person or that experience did it to me, you're saying I stopped growing and changing in that moment. And the stronger the emotion you feel, the more altered you feel, the more you put your attention on that person. So then it makes total sense then that the latest research on memory says that 50% of what we talk about in our past isn't even the truth, that memory is creative. We make stuff up. Yeah, there's research on memory that says that when you tell a story of your past, that you don't have the same brain that you did at that moment, that 50% of that you embellish. So then that means people are reliving a miserable life that they never even had, just to reaffirm the fact that they're stuck in their past. And it's all because they want to condition their body. A conditioning process just requires a symbol, a thought, a stimulus, and a feeling. And so you remember the event, you feel the emotion, you're conditioning your body more into the past. And yeah, you're right. But valid or not, let's take that person, let's Let's put him in a rocket and shoot him to the moon. Now what? What do you want to do now?
Yeah.
I mean, you're still left with you, right? And so then what we know is that getting people out of that state, bringing them up to the present moment, when they start letting go, when they finally let go, the freedom that they feel, the joy that they feel, causes them to naturally feel these elevated emotions. So the overcoming process, that is such an important element, because most people, I just want to focus on the positive. I don't want to really, well, no. If 95% of you is an unconscious set of programs, you got to become conscious of them so you don't go unconscious during your normal day, because you'll go right back into the unconscious habit and thinking the same way, acting the same way, feeling the same way, and wondering why your life isn't changing. Mm-hmm. And that's the work. You start trying to control and force outcomes, right?
Yeah.
You start trying to predict how it's going to happen. Now you're in your way, right? Because prediction is the known, right? But when you're more in the present moment and you change your energy, look, when you start opening your heart, the research that's done on the heart, when you start feeling an elevated emotion, the heart starts beating coherently. When you're frustrated, when you're resentful, when you're impatient, your heart is beating very incoherently. It's like stepping on the gas pedal and stepping on the brake at the same time. The heart's going to run, fight, or hide, and here you are sitting there with a smile on your face, and your body is going through all these chemical reactions. The heart is beating incoherently. When you start practicing moving energy back into your heart, start opening your heart, and it starts beating more coherently, it produces a measurable magnetic field that's up to 3 meters wide. Now, you're emitting a signal. That energy is frequency. And that frequency carries information, which means now that frequency can carry the thought of your health. It can carry the thought of your wealth. It's consistent with it. Suffering is not going to carry the thought of your health. It's not the same frequency. It's a different frequency. It carries the thought of, I'm a victim, or my life's never going to change. That's the energy. So every thought has a frequency. So then, and they add up. They start creating form. So we've measured the energy in the room. We've actually done this. And we've taken 750 people, 1,000 people, and we've had them practice opening their hearts, elevating their energy. And then we have 40 people or 50 people sitting in the front of the room with their eyes closed, wearing a heart rate monitor. And we say, okay, send the thought on that loving energy, on that elevated emotion, that their bodies be healed, that their lives be enriched, their dreams come true, that they have mystical moments. And just do it for 10 minutes. And all of those people sitting with their heart rate monitors, the majority of them, their hearts go into heart coherence at the exact same time, at the exact same day, in the exact same meditation. So they're receiving a frequency, and we are bound by an invisible field of energy. And what binds us, connects us, is love. That's what creates connection. Fear, prejudice, anger, hatred, violence, suffering, they create separation. That's when you draw from the field. You're drawing from your vital life force around your body, and you're turning it into chemistry. And the field around your body is shrinking. Now, you feel separate from everyone and everything. And when you feel more like matter and less like energy, you're going to try to force outcomes and try harder and fight for it more and manipulate and cheat or do whatever you compete, do whatever you have to do to get it, right? Because you're matter trying to change matter. When you start elevating your emotional state and you start broadcasting new information into the field, think about this. When there's a vibrational match between your energy and some potential in the quantum field, you don't go anywhere to get it. It starts being drawn to you. You're the magnet to your destiny. So then, the moment you start getting frustrated and impatient, you just disconnected from the energy of your future. Now you're back to the energy of your past. Don't expect anything to change in your life. And if you say to me, well, it was that person or that thing that did it to me, I'd say, oh, you're back to the unconscious program that you're a victim again.
Yeah.
And so then people start figuring this out. They start doing it. They start doing it because they understand when they're consistent with this energy and they can hold on to it.
That's manifesting.
They don't have to go anywhere to do it. Why would they rush out of the present moment? Because the present moment's bringing it to them. And so it becomes an art. It becomes a skill. It becomes an ability. And they're able to navigate in their life in the uncertainty, in the unpredictable moment, and self-regulate in that moment. That's the key moment where it matters the most. They say, whoa, I'm feeling a little fear. They don't surrender the fear. They say, okay, I've lost it. I've got to stop, and I got to self-regulate. And they get back into that state again. Now, to me, if you get up feeling like your future's already happened, you won't be looking for it.
Yeah.
You'll feel like you already have it. Why would you look for it, right?
Will you explain the field and energy to people who aren't well versed in it.
Sure. I mean, anybody who says that they understand quantum physics is absolutely a liar, because it's this invisible field of energy.
I actually looked up the book I want to get is Quantum Physics for Dummies.
Yeah.
Because I want to understand it better.
Yeah. So basically, quantum mechanics says this, that your subjective mind has an effect on the objective world at the very, very tiny, tiny level of subatomic particles. So, you know, Einstein and Planck were fooling around with subatomic particles. They were putting energy into electrons, disturbing electrons, and they were expecting those electrons to fall like an apple falling from the tree, just like Newtonian predictable world, you know, in a very smooth and consistent way. And when they did that, it didn't happen. The electrons were disappearing and reappearing, and it was more like a ball rolling down steps. And they all of a sudden realized that the tiny world of subatomic particles, atoms, don't behave like the very large world, like planets and suns and everything else, and apples falling from trees. So they started looking for the electrons, and as they start to look for them and measure them, they would appear. And so they realized that the observer, that the mind was so commingled at that level of subatomic particles that it was impossible to separate the two. And in fact, every quantum physics experiment, you have to have an observer present, because without the observer being present, it changes the outcome. So, you know, I've drank martinis with quantum physicists till sunrise talking about this, and they always say, yeah, you know, the observer effect, you know, Joe, the subatomic world is the only thing that it affects. It doesn't happen for very large things, and I always say the same thing. Maybe we're just poor observers. Maybe we can get better at observation and focus. So the quantum field is an invisible field of energy or frequency, and all frequency carries information that's beyond this space and time. There's no bodies there, there's no people, there's no things, there's no places, there isn't even time. It's one infinite field. They call it the fertile void, the 0 point, where there's nothing physical. But that's where all possibilities exist. And you can't enter it as an identity. You can't enter it as your body. In fact, when we teach people how to connect to that field, we say to them, now it's time to become nobody, no one, no thing, nowhere, in no time. And that means if you're not your body, but you have no attention on your body, no attention on your identity or the people in your life that you identify with, no attention on the things you own, the objects that you're aware of, no attention on the place you're sitting, the place you work, the place you sleep, your home, and no attention on the familiar past or the predictable future. There's only one thing that you are in that moment. That is awareness, consciousness. And that's the eye of the needle. That is the door to the quantum field, and you can't enter as a somebody. You got to enter as a nobody. So teaching people how to get to this point, that's part of the formula. And that means they have to be able to be there without a face, without a name, without a diet, without their problems, without their disease. They have to be able to dissociate from everything known in their life.
How? Meditation?
Yeah, it's one of the formulas. We teach people how to do that. So it's actually very simple. Most people narrow their focus on material things, like our eyes naturally do it. Like we narrow our focus on objects. It's called a narrow focus or an object focus. Turns out when you're stressed or the fight or flight nervous system switched on, now you really narrow your focus because you're looking for the danger. You're anticipating the danger. So people get really stuck in a very narrow focus. In fact, when they're under stress, they obsess. They obsess about one thing. They're narrowing their focus, and they can't get beyond that one thought. Well, that's really adaptive if T-Rex is outside the cave, right? And you got to keep your attention, and you got to stay aroused in order so you don't get eaten. Well, that becomes a habit. So that kind of what's called convergent focus is very unhealthy for the brain. As you're aroused by those chemicals, and you're shifting your attention when you're in that state from one person to one appointment to another problem to another person to another place, every person, everything, every object, every place has a neurological network in your brain. So as you begin to shift your attention from all these things and the brain is aroused, it's like a lightning storm in the clouds. Your brain is firing those networks very incoherently. And when the brain's incoherent, you're incoherent. So then do the exact opposite. Go from a narrow focus, a convergent focus, to a divergent focus. Open your awareness. Focus on nothing but space. And as you close your eyes and you sense space, you stop analyzing and you stop thinking. So as you're sensing space, you begin to slow your brain waves down. And as they slow down, all of a sudden the autonomic nervous system begins to merge and it comes forward and it starts to synchronize those circuits that were out of balance. And what syncs in the brain links in the brain. So all of a sudden the brain starts firing in a more coherent way. And when that happens, we call it getting beyond yourself. You forget about yourself. That is the moment you're entering that field. And you can't enter associated with anything known. You got to enter as an unknown. You have to put more of your attention on it and less of your attention on you.
Whoa. When you're making these changes and going to the workshops and working on yourself, is it more believable to think that you're going to affect the people around you in a positive way, or that they can drag you down in their negative way?
Well, I mean, the higher the vibration, the higher the frequency, I mean, the higher the level of awareness or consciousness. And so what we see in our events is we see, or the first 2 days is about getting beyond you. Mm-hmm. And what I do is I set up the conditions where I go further than where people normally go. You know, they go to a certain point and then they finish, and I say, nah, we're going to go further. So we take them past that point, and sooner or later they start letting go. So when they start breaking through, they're contributing to the field. Mm-hmm. And we've measured the energy in the room after the first day of most of our events. In fact, the first day of many events, the energy goes up, and then the next day it goes up more. The next day it goes up, and that's available energy for people to heal. That's available energy for people who have a mystical experience. That's available energy for them to create with. So then it becomes an entraining process. And what we do really well, and our research shows this, is we teach people how to suppress their neocortex, shut the lights out in this mechanism here that's your memory bank of your known identity self. Turn that down. Dial that down, and our research shows that our students can do it very well. Now, once you suppress this melon here, the conscious mind, what do you got left? You got the subconscious mind, you got the autonomic nervous system, and that's the antenna. So when we see people doing this and they start in training, wow, they start having profound mystical experiences. People start having very profound energetic moments, and they're influencing one another. And of course, now you're moving a community of people across. And once you get to that certain state, then it just becomes magic. Everybody just goes. It happens. We were just doing an event in Mallorca last week. I got back on Sunday night, actually Monday morning, and we had 1,300 people there, and we solicited 1,300 people, and 1,300 people said, I had the most amazing week of my life. That everybody, the entire audience, had some type of personal transformation, personal breakthrough, amazing healing, or mystical moment that changed them for the rest of their lives. And it becomes a frequency that everybody becomes entrained to. And so then, by the same means, as people are starting to overcome all their old programs, nobody's complaining. Mm-hmm. And if nobody's complaining, and you're the only one complaining at the lunch table, all of a sudden you become aware. Everybody kind of looks at you, and you're like,
yeah, you stick out.
Oh, well, now I'm no one else is doing it. I don't have any agreement here, so they just finally they stop. So. But
what about when they go home?
Well, have
they already, with the field, communicated in a sense with the people that are closest to them?
Well,
I feel like that happens.
Yeah, I can tell you this, that, wow, we have great accounts of mothers that have had grown adults with autism or mental health issues. Boy, they have an amazing transformation because mom's energy changed, and it just affected them, and children as well. So I think that, I always say, when I ran my clinic in the Pacific Northwest, I'd always say to the staff, our energy's got to be higher than every single person that walks through that door, because we want to bring everybody's energy up, right? So it works both ways. Some days you begin to entrain other people's frequency, and it becomes magic. Other days you can't get beyond it, and you're brought down to a lower level, and that's the work. That's the work every day. How'd I do today?
Yeah.
At the end of your day, ask yourself, how'd I do? When did I fall from grace? When did I go unconscious?
Yeah.
When did I lose it? Well, if it happened again, what would I do differently? Now you're evolving your own experience of self, right? And you say, well, the next time that happens, I'm going to rehearse how I'm going to be. Now, you're installing the hardware to be able to move through that experience. That's evolution, right? And I think that people start figuring that out really well. So some people return back into their lives and they do the work every day, and it just gets better. Some people get busy, they get tired, they miss a few days, they fall back into their old self again, and they gotta make their way back. And I always say to people, I don't care when you stopped, I just care when you start again. Exactly. And here's the beauty behind it all. When the field starts responding, the universe starts giving you feedback. I swear, I've seen this so many times. When the magic starts happening and things start falling out of nowhere, you will look back at your entire past in that moment, and you're not going to want to change one single thing in your past because it brought you to the present moment.
Yes.
That's the moment the past no longer exists. That's the moment you're free. That's when you say, it all makes sense. And so many people now in this work, when they start raising their awareness, we just had a guy send a video in from Spain. I was laughing so hard at him because he had a really difficult life when he was young. And he just kept saying, in this beautiful way, it all makes sense now. I understand. I understand everything. I've never felt this much love in my life. Of course, he's not viewing it from that same level of consciousness, that same level. He's viewing it from he's not in the labyrinth. He's looking at it from above, and it all makes sense. And it's not discontinuous. It's unified, because as you get closer and closer to connecting to that unified field, that invisible field of energy that connects everything material, as you get closer and closer to it, you experience greater levels of wholeness, greater levels of oneness. And as you do that, you feel less separation. So things all make sense. They all connect because you're at a greater level. Imagine where you can go with that. I mean, that's the ultimate goal, is where you need nothing because you're so whole, you're so connected. That why would you need anything? You feel like you have it already. I think that's the state in which the uncommon happens.